Hello, thank you for joining us behind the bins. I'm Kate.
And I'm Tim, and we're aiming to lift the lid on the world of waste.
So every podcast we're going to present a different question to our guests, listeners, and look to share a bit of insight about the inner workings of the waste industry. So this week we've got a not particularly light topic. Is the waste industry dangerous?
It is.
Is that the end?
So if you're on a schedule, you can just leave right now. No, waste collection is actually one of the most dangerous industries to work in that there is. I think only farming is more dangerous than collecting waste or working in the waste industry. We talk about construction used to be, a very dangerous place to work, and has made massive improvements. I think the waste industry is struggling to make those same improvements, although there is some progress being made.
I think people would be really surprised about that. If you ask people the top 3 dangerous jobs working in the UK, I just don't think people would put bin man on that list.
No. And I think, by nature of the type of work that they do, and we're talking particularly about the collection side of it. So you've got people working in the dark, in the rain, working at the side of a busy road, going in and out of people's gardens, doing the same thing repetitively. It's a physical job, and actually, for the most part, we don't see it. We only see it when we're annoyed because we're stuck behind a bin truck in our cars, impatiently trying to get past, which is, of course, one of the dangers. So
what are the main hazards then, do you think, to working in the waste industry?
I think on the collection side, the obvious one is that you can get run over by the truck or run over by another vehicle because you're working in and around the road, pushing a bin. I think at a much lower level, there's an awful lot of slips and trips and falls. And also, as we move more towards these separated collections with boxes, there's a lot of repetitive picking up, bending down, that sort of stuff. Not so much what's in the bin. If you're putting your hands in a box, who knows what you're putting your hands into? So that there's those dangers, and then the big one is that machine at the back of the vehicle that will lift a 200 kilo bin without breaking a sweat and throw it into a crusher. It will do that with you as well if you get hooked up on it. So there's a lot of dangers to working with that machine.
And I think we see all the time, don't we, the impatient driver mounting the curb to get round, perhaps not driving that safely.
Yeah.
Road dangers generally can be a challenge, but particularly, as you say, early mornings in winter, it's dark. And that's where the PPE is really important as well. Is the use of, the protocols that are in place, the PPE, is there a cultural issue around not considering safety?
We're obviously generalising and stereotyping a little bit, but the average waste operative, we used to call them bin men because they're mostly men, and mostly guys doing a physical job. So they're that stereotypical hard-working, getting on with the job. And also working in an environment of what we call task and finish, where the quicker you get your work done, the quicker you get to go home. So it sort of incentivizes working quickly. I think anybody, you do these things without thinking about them. So that act of, moving around the truck, putting the bin on the back of the wagon, pushing the button to send the bin up, or if it's an automatic lifter, just putting the bin on. Those things just become a muscle memory, and it's quite easy to get into a bad habit. And we all know that, if you take a shortcut 99 times out of 100, you'll get away with it. Unfortunately, when you're working around HGVs and compactors and automatic machinery, the one time you don't get away with it can be really horrific.
Yeah, and I guess this is all remote working. People haven't got safety managers, supervisors necessarily overseeing a lot of that as well.
Yeah, and again, one of the things from the work that we've done in remote monitoring and really looking into this, it's horrific when you see it go wrong. But perhaps what is more telling for me is the number of times you see things happening that just don't get reported. A lot of the examples that we sort of show in our presentations and that we look at, they are things that, someone really could have been awfully injured, but got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't reported or put in an accident book or investigated because it's just normal. I've literally seen a loader come within millimetres of being hit by a car. A van wing mirror went past his head at quite a speed. It would have seriously injured him if he hit it. He jumped back at the last moment. It missed him, and he went about his day. Perfectly normal. Less than half a second away from a serious injury. But it's very, very normal. It's just one of those 99 times out of 100, you step out from behind the truck, you get away with it.
Yeah. And they're so used to that happening all the time that maybe they don't think of it as a near miss or a potential issue.
Yeah.
Well, before we go to our guest to talk a little bit more about how they're managing this within the local authority, have we got an interesting question of the week?
I did have. What was it? How many bin trucks are there in the UK?
How many bin trucks are there in the UK? I've got to try and sort of do some maths without knowing any of the real numbers.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess 10,000.
It's a pretty good guess. Yeah, I'd say maybe a few more than that, but yeah, that kind of area. So again, we talk about this muscle memory and doing the same thing over and over again. The number of times people are doing this stuff multiplies up really quickly. So if you've got 10,000 bin trucks on the domestic route, they're probably picking up at least 1,000 bins a day. If you're on a commercial route, not quite as many, but the bins are bigger. So yeah, there's a lot of cycles of those bin lifters going up. And I think this leads on to my sort of phase 2 fun fact, which is that machine at the back of the vehicle, the lifter that takes the wheeled bin, throws it up in the air and drops all the contents into the hopper and then brings the bin back down again. That is an automatic machine. So as soon as the bin goes on it, usually it lifts. And that's there just for speed, because if you had to have the guy going on the side and pressing the button, it would slow the whole thing down. So it's automatic. As I say, it will lift a couple of 100 kilos, no problems at all. And it has no guards on it. There's nothing stopping the loader getting tangled up in it. There's nothing stopping a member of the public passing by getting tangled up in it. If you put that into a factory, your factory will be shut down because it's not legal to have an unguarded machine like that working in a factory. If you strap it to the back of a HGV and put it at the side of an A road in the driving rain at 6 a.m, it's fine.
Wow, that really does put it into perspective a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fundamental problems that the collection industry is wrestling with. You've got to do a dangerous thing. You can't actually eliminate it. So we've got to find ways of mitigating that risk and still keeping people safe.
And I guess the pressure for efficiency, more and more councils are trying to save money and looking at making these things efficient. That pressure to collect more bins, to reduce the number of vehicles is at odds with making this as safe as possible, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just about, the potential of getting people to work faster. We've got people working, quite commonly working 4-day weeks. So it's rather than being 5 7-hour days, it might be 4 9-hour days. So the days get longer, fatigue becomes a factor. So yeah, all of these things do accumulate in what is quite a risky and dangerous occupation, and puts a duty on the operators, whether it's a council or a waste collection company, to put really good working practices in place, but also monitor them to make sure that they're being followed. So this feels like a good time to move to our guest slot.
So we've got Tony from Coventry City Council who's joined us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Tony. You had a pretty major incident a little while ago at the council. Are you happy to share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, a few years back we were unfortunate to be in a position where we had a fatality in the workforce, and as a consequence we've beefed up everything with training, and we've done a lot of work with vehicle manufacturers as well to improve the systems on the back of the vehicles, and the industry has reacted very well. in the main, and now we've got all sorts of technology that are helping to keep our staff safe.
What kind of technology, what are the changes that you've seen to the vehicles themselves?
A lot of the sensors have been changed on the back of the vehicle. They will pick up a human being whilst ignoring a bin. The latest incarnation on our found vehicles is that we are using AI cameras to detect humans. We also do 4 vehicle random checks per week through the cameras on the vehicles. So we sit and look at 2 hours of footage for 4 different vehicles per week, pick up anything that may have a health and safety element attached to it, and anything that's bad practice. But not just that, we also pick up the good practice, and I think that's just as important to feed back to your crews when they're doing a really good job and following their systems of work.
So I think the fundamental problem that that led to fatality was the person getting into the crush zone, or as we call it, and the automatic lifter, not knowing the difference between a person and a bin.
Yeah, and I mean it was a horrible situation for myself, for the council, for his colleagues, and obviously horrendous for his family. And he stepped into the danger zone. The lift caught an item of clothing, and the rest was just horrendous.
So we've seen a lot in the press about the automatic lifters since then. So has that changed a lot?
It has changed a lot, and there's a lot of work still going on that front as well. And like I say, with the latest AI technology being used on the vehicles, it makes a huge difference, because as soon as it detects a person within that danger zone, it stops everything straight, and nothing will work until you reset it. That's where we should have been probably 20 years ago. Okay, we're there now, and I would suggest that anybody that gets an opportunity to use technology takes it very seriously, because being in an inquest and having to relive those moments over and over again is not the nicest place to be.
You mentioned maybe we should have been here 20 years ago. How do you think things have changed over the last 20 years? Do you think the job has become more or less dangerous? I think in some ways we're expecting more from crews, but we've got more safety stuff there. How do you see those changes?
The job is a very difficult job at the best of times. You're walking a very long way, people get tired, people become very complacent about what they do. And I think that we should have been looking more at safety systems rather than just productivity. Obviously, productivity is very important to all of us. However, you need to send your staff home safe at night. That is our ultimate goal at the end of the day, is to send everybody home safe. So I think we've looked more and more for vehicles to do more and more, lift bins quicker, etc., whereas we've forgot the fundamental, which is there is a person at the other end of that bin. And a bin can be replaced, a person can't.
And those guys are doing the same action, aren't they? Sort of thousands of times a week. It becomes a muscle memory, so it's quite easy to get into a bad habit or just to make a mistake. And
no, if you do something repetitively, day in, day out, it's very easy to become complacent. Those machines are very large and very dangerous. You wouldn't want to have a head-on collision with one, let alone get one to throw you in the back of the machine itself. The crushing power is phenomenal, and the human body can't put up with that amount of strain. It will give. And so I think, yes, productivity, we need to make sure that we're doing the right amount of bins a day. However, we've got to do it as safely as we possibly can. And it's not just the machinery, it's the residents, the public, the angry motorist at the back of the vehicle. There are so many things going on, and the guys really do have to have their eyes and ears peeled all the time. It's mentally quite draining as well.
Yeah, and it's not just the machine at the back, is it? It's the traffic that's moving around you. I'm aware of other instances where crew have been sort of run over by passing cars or even aggressively driven vehicles. It's not just the machine; it's the whole environment they're working in, and it's often dark and wet and windy and slippy and all the rest of it as well, isn't it?
And that's on the good days. The reality is that motorists are very impatient. It's been day, leave 5 minutes earlier. Please, it's not that difficult to work out. Drivers in cars going up pavements and putting other pavement users at risk, as well as the crews. Everybody seems to be wanting to get somewhere yesterday, but nobody wants to leave 5 minutes earlier to do so. So everything becomes a frustration. The way that parking is nowadays, it's very difficult to pull over to one side because there just is no gaps in the parking. And so anger and rage takes people over. And so the crews put up with an awful lot whilst having to think about the fundamental of the job, which is put a bin on, keep yourself safe. Put a bin on, keep yourself safe. But they're also looking out for angry motorists, angry residents. There's always somebody that's got something to say to them. The abuse level has gone through the roof, and that's something that we're looking to combat at the moment.
We've talked a bit about then that sort of road rage and drivers putting the crews at risk. Is there any other public behaviours that put the crews at risk?
Recycling is one where you don't collect a bin because it's heavily contaminated, and the person who lives in that house wants to batter somebody because the bin's not been emptied. And they will chase crews down the road, a bin, very abusive. But again, the cost of contamination to local authorities is horrendous across the country. And we have to have a form of education. And if that means tagging the bins and sending people's letters and ultimately taking away recycling bins, then that's what we have to do. But again, people need to remember the crews are only doing their job.
Is there anything else that you would kind of want, local authorities who haven't been through this, what would you want them to take away to sort of avoid having to deal with that situation that you guys have had?
Make sure your risk assessments are right. Make sure your safe systems of work are as accurate as they can be. If you need to spell it out to staff, do it. I can't emphasise enough how much the training is important. Our training is now grown and grown and grown over a period of 3 years. And I'm always looking for additional things to put in it that just takes it that one step further. I'd never want anybody to be in the position I was in, where I sat in an inquest. I did accidentally bump into the coroner about 3 weeks ago. He is seeing a difference. He's seeing a difference at the back of the trucks. He's seeing people with the proper flags on the back that are visible to the public with the right messages on them. So it is having an effect, and I think that's great. But being mindful, there's always more we can do. And I would encourage other managers just to look, double check, triple check, and make sure you take that time to carry out the training, because at the end of the day, it's absolutely worthwhile.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing what is quite a challenging, discussion. Obviously, it's been really impactful for you all, and as you say, the family and the crew. So thank you for sharing your experience, and hopefully that helps to make a difference to other people as well.
I think the takeaway from that is that technology has got a part to play. Automated stops, monitoring, all those things. But it's the training, the processes, and that just continued attention to making sure you're doing the right things in the right way. It's the dull and boring stuff that really makes the difference.
I think it was really interesting what he said about how there's always this drive for efficiency and productivity, and actually sometimes that could be to the detriment of the health of staff, and that's something that we need to be really mindful of.
Yeah, and productivity is easy to measure. Safety isn't easy to measure unless something goes horribly wrong.
So the question for this week was, is waste collection a dangerous industry to work in? And I think the answer is really clearly, yeah.
Yes, it is. And we've all got a part to play in trying to move the needle to make it less dangerous. We'd
be really interested in hearing your thoughts. If you've had incidents similar, if you're putting different safety measures in place at the local authority where you're at, let us know. You can get in touch with us on LinkedIn. We've got a Behind the Bins community on there, or you can email us at behindthebins@bartekmunicipal.com.
And we'd really love to hear any ideas and innovations and things that you're doing on a practical level to drive forward safety.
So what has caught your eye this week, Tim?
Well, it's still on the safety theme, really. I think you'd be hard pushed not to see all the stuff in the press around fires in waste vehicles and in waste facilities. And what I've noticed recently are calls from within the industry, particularly Biffa, but now joined by others, really advocating for a deposit return scheme for disposable vapes. And the thing that caught my eye was not so much the idea, which I entirely understand, is to actually put a number on it as well. So I think Biffa were suggesting £5 as a deposit return on a disposable vape.
I think it's got to be a big number, hasn't it? We've briefly talked about DRS, and we'll do an episode on that, I'm sure, about how motivated people are really going to be to take their bottles back for 20p a bottle. I think vapes is a much bigger issue. We've already got curbside recycling for plastic, without getting on too much of a tangent with that. But yeah, vapes is a massive issue, and I think if you put a decent sized deposit, it will drive people to take them back. And yeah, we've certainly seen it feels like a massive increase in fires in the last few years, whether we're just hearing more about them. But yeah, it's a huge problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost coming to an interesting fact, but I was at an event not that long ago, and I think it was Veolia say they are having 2 vehicle fires per day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And we're definitely not hearing about that much.
Not many, no, but the other estimate is that there are, I think it's 6.3 million vapes being produced going into the waste stream. It's a colossal number.
Mm-hmm. And although they've banned disposable vapes, it's exactly the same thing. It's just got a charging point on it now. So
they've stuck a USB port on it, so it's not disposable anymore. So yeah, it's exactly the same problem. And again, potentially worse, because some of these vapes are now going into the stream fully charged. So they're even more of a fire hazard than they were when they were fully depleted. So yeah, it's an interesting development, and it looks like there's a bit of a head of steam gathering to finally tackle the vape problem.
Yeah, well, good luck to them. I know Biffa have been doing some of the campaigning about it. I think it's a no-brainer, really. Might take a while to get through legislation, but it'll be interesting to see that.
Something must be done.
For sure.
What's your fun fact, Kate?
Well, you nicked mine that I literally told you about the other day.
Oh, have I?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Sorry about that. I knew I got it from somewhere.
So the question that we're asking next time is, what happens if I can't manage to put my bins out?
And the jargon for that in the industry is assisted collections, or assisted pulls, or whatever else you might call them.
Or pull outs.
Yes. Yes. But that is what we're going to talk about next time. So if you've got ideas, questions for that particular segment, stick them on the LinkedIn.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And hopefully, come and join us next time. Thank you very much.
Bye.